Right, Nana. Hello, friends. Welcome back. So we are done with the first part of the revision of decision making. Okay, I think till here we are done. We are finished, right? So now we're gonna continue with this one. Okay, let's go to the next concept. Ready, guys? Yeah. So this is a very important concept, Nana. Right? Marginal costing versus absorption costing. In what way it is important, sir? In your inter itself, this particular topic is important, but at final level, it is important from the perspective of decision making chapter, as well as it is important for standard costing as well as it is important when you're trying to club ABC activity based costing with either standard costing or decision making. You will understand what I'm trying to say only if you solve problems, but what I'm trying to tell you, one thing is for sure, that this is a very important concept even at final level. Okay, it's not like directly there will be a question where he'll ask you, explain the differences between marginal costing or versus absorption costing, or there will be a 16 mark or 20 mark question from this particular area. It's not like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the understanding of this concept is must for you to understand a lot of other concepts. For example, there is something called reconciliation of profits in standard costing. You know that it's a very important topic at new syllabus final level in CA final SCMP, because I think reconciliation sums has been asked thrice so far, that model. But that model you will not be able to understand with logics unless you have clarity with respect to marginal costing versus absorption costing. Are you able to understand? So in that way, it is really important. Otherwise, you just need to by heart the reconciliation in standard costing without understanding any logics. If you want to understand the logics, then this is it. Like this, knowing this concept is very important. I hope you guys are able to understand what I'm trying to tell you. Anyways, so we'll go a lot deeper. I'll try to dig deeper. We'll try to connect a lot of concepts. There will be a lot of interconnecting being done, as well as we'll try to understand the logic of it. Okay, so that we'll be able to remember that easily. So what is this concept of marginal costing versus absorption costing? First one, marginal costing is used for decision making. Absorption costing is used for external reporting. Like in cost records, what we do, we basically follow absorption costing methodology and then we try to present our cost records. So it is for external reporting. Marginal costing is a technique. Absorption costing is a method. So I hope in Inter you guys have already seen. I'll just try to brush up the chapters that you have studied in your CA Inter or CMA Inter. Marginal costing, standard costing, budgeting, all these are examples of techniques. Unit costing, process costing, joint and byproduct, job costing, batch costing, all these are examples of methods. Okay, right. Coming on to the major difference now. Now we're going to look into the income statement, how income statement looks like as per marginal costing and absorption costing without stock. Without stock. There is a reason why I've written without stock here. We'll try to understand that. Right now, just focus on the concepts. One more important thing, many students are asking me, sir, you are teaching from this particular PowerNotes 2.0. Where can we get it? You can buy the color hard copy, okay, of PowerNotes 2.0 from PKSir Classes app. The name of the app itself is PKSir Classes, okay. So if you are an Android user, listen carefully, Nana. I'm again repeating because many students have been messaging us. If you're an Android user, just go to Google Play Store. I hope everybody knows what is Google Play Store, okay, and search for the name PKSir Classes. Just like this, PK, Gap, Sir, and Classes. You'll find our app. Go to the app. In that you'll have store. Go to the store. In that you'll find a product that is PowerNotes 2.0 hard copy, color hard copy. Product will be there. You can purchase it directly by making payment through any of the means. Okay, if you are an iOS user, that is if you are using Apple iPhone and stuff like that, then you have to go to Apple App Store. From that App Store, you need to search with the name My Institute. This is the app, My Institute. Once you download My Institute app, then you have to use the code YCWR. That is our classes code. Then automatically the app gets converted into PKSir Classes app. And again, same procedure. From that, you can go to the store, and from that store, you can buy. Okay, right? You can get the hard copy. Is that clear? So you can keep that hard copy with you and follow these revision classes. That will really come in handy for you, especially for your exams. And again, I'm telling you, almost 70% of the stock is done. It's been, I think, 1 month since we have launched the hard copy. So 70% of the stock is done. So only 30% is left over. So you guys try to place the order as early as possible. Otherwise, after that, once it is out of stock, it will at least take another 2 months at least for us to get it back, to replenish that. Therefore, whoever is trying to follow my revision lectures, and you're going to write exam in December, I would rather ask you guys to place the order ASAP. Meanwhile, you just follow these revision lectures, which I'm going to upload in the YouTube, and in few days you'll get the power notes. I hope it will really come in handy because all the concepts has been kept in 299 pages. Okay, so 299 pages is something that will come in really handy for you the day before the exam. All concepts of all chapters. You will see it when I'm going through the revision sessions. You will be able to understand what I'm trying to say. Anyways, now, so that power notes is what I'm using over here, and then I'm trying to take you revision sessions over here. Right. Anyways, now moving on to the next one, income statement. So if you can see, when it comes to marginal costing, this is the way the income statement looks like. First, you'll have sales. From that, you'll reduce variable cost. You get your contribution. From that, you reduce fixed cost. You get your profit. All of you guys are aware of this kind of presentation of income statement as per marginal costing. As per absorption costing also, the income statement is presented this way. First, from sales, you'll reduce factory cost. You get your gross profit. Then you reduce administration and selling and distribution overheads. Now, normally in regular class, I'll take a lot of time to teach this, because obviously regular class is beyond 240 hours, even in crash also for that matter. But when it comes to revision session, since we don't have time, but I'll just tell you one thing. Always when it comes to manufacturing company, you guys imagine that there are 3 buildings. Okay, imagine that there are 3 buildings. It will be easy for you to understand the concepts. One is factory, administration building, and sales and distribution. Just imagine that as a showroom. Are you able to understand? Whenever you are trying to prepare an income statement as per absorption costing, you just need to reduce these 3 buildings cost. The first building is factory. Whatever the cost that is incurred inside the factory building, we call it as factory cost. Second building, third building, so that it will be very easy for you to recollect. Okay. So when it comes to marginal costing, it's pretty simple. Sales minus variable cost, you get your contribution, minus fixed cost, you get your profit. We know this pro forma. When it comes to absorption costing, this is the way. Sales minus first building, gross profit minus remaining 2 buildings. There ends the matter. Now, if you look at the way the income statement has been presented, it has been unique, right? The reason is, when it comes to marginal costing, when you're trying to prepare this income statement, you consider variability of a particular cost and you ignore functionality of a particular cost. Functionality means there are 3 types of functions. One is factory function, administration function, and selling and distribution function inside a factory. So if you try to classify your cost based on functions, there are only 3 types of cost. Factory cost based on that factory function or manufacturing function, administration function, so administration cost, and selling and distribution function, so selling and distribution cost. So when you are trying to prepare your income statement as per marginal costing, what is there in your mind? You always try to find out whether a particular cost is variable or not. If a cost is variable, it will come here. If a cost is not variable, it will come here. You're not worried about to what function does it belong to. You're not worried about whether it belongs to manufacturing function or administration function or selling and distribution function. I hope you're getting my drift, right? Now, coming on to absorption costing, the thought process is exactly opposite. I consider functionality, I ignore what? Variability, which means here if you come and tell me, sir, there is a variable cost, my answer should be, don't tell me whether it is variable or not, just tell me to what function does it belong to. Does it belong to manufacturing function? Then it will come here. That is, factory is nothing but manufacturing, right? Irrespective of whether it is variable cost or fixed cost, because I'm not worried about whether it is variable or fixed. I'm only worried about to what function does it belong. That's my mindset when I'm preparing income statement as per absorption costing system. So therefore, because of your mindset change, the way you're preparing an income statement, their pro forma is different. Even though the pro forma is different over here, the presentation is different, still you reduce the same number of costs. Therefore, profit under marginal costing is equal to profit under absorption costing. These 2 profits are same. Now you can ask me, how is that, sir? We can just verify. Here, if you see, variable cost means inside that variable cost, what is present? Direct material, variable, direct labor, variable, variable factory overheads, variable administration overheads, variable selling and distribution overheads, 3 buildings. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to fixed cost, we have 3 buildings. Each building will have its own fixed cost. So fixed factory overheads, fixed administration overheads, and fixed selling and distribution overheads. There ends the matter. Now, if you look at this, inside factory cost also, what do we have? Inside factory, we have got direct material, direct labor, and because it is factory cost, you'll have factory overheads, which is variable and fixed, right? Administration overheads, variable and fixed. Selling and distribution overheads, variable and fixed. If you see, in both the cases, we have reduced exactly the same items of cost, the same 8 in number. Are you able to understand? So that's the proof, which means profit under marginal costing is exactly equals to profit under absorption costing. Are you able to understand? Now let's look at the summary. Profit under marginal costing is equal to profit under absorption costing, provided when there is no stock. This is very important. Provided, can you see that? when there is no stock. Very, very, very important. That's the reason when I've prepared income statement, I've specifically written without stock. This is the reason for that. Which means what is the contrary statement? Profit under marginal costing is not equals to profit under absorption costing if there is stock. So when there is no stock, both the profits are same, which means when there is stock, both the profits should not be same. That's how the statement works, right? Now we're gonna focus on the second statement now hereafter. What is that? Why profit under marginal costing is not equals to profit under absorption costing if there is stock. To understand this particular statement, we need to imagine certain scenarios. Okay, before that, this is some of your basics. Okay, factory cost means inside factory you'll have direct cost as well as indirect cost, which is overheads. In direct cost you'll have three elements: direct material, labor and expenses. In indirect cost you'll have three elements: material, labor and expenses. Direct expense is a pretty rare item, so we presume that it does not incur. Therefore, you are left with direct material and direct labor. Okay. Indirect cost can also be called as overheads. So therefore, factory cost is nothing but direct cost plus indirect cost. Direct cost is nothing but direct material plus direct labor, because we have presumed that direct expense does not exist. And the indirect cost is nothing but overheads. Because they are inside the factory, we call it as factory overheads. FOH here means factory overheads. Okay, not fixed overheads. Keep that in mind. So this is your factory cost. All the cost inside the administration building or indirect only, therefore it is called overheads. Why? Because your output or units are manufactured inside the factory, and the cost that is being incurred here is indirectly related to the units which are manufactured inside the factory. Therefore, all the costs are indirect here. Here also all the costs are indirect. These are all basics of your inter. Are you able to get me? Anyways, I hope this is clear. So this should help you to understand this better. Okay. So anyways, now we're gonna focus on this particular sentence now. Profit under marginal costing is not equals to profit under absorption costing if there is stock. Let's try to understand what it is. To understand that, we're gonna imagine three scenarios. How many scenarios? Three scenarios. So we'll go through these three scenarios one by one. Okay. So let's start with the first one. The first one is your sales will be equals to production. The second one, sales is less than production. And the third one is sales is greater than production. So if your sales is equal to production, basically it means that there is no stock. Therefore, we already know that if there is no stock, then both the profits are going to be what? Same, that we have already seen. So that's what I've written here. Both the profits will be same. But if sales is less than production, then it means that there is a net closing stock. Listen carefully. Okay, net closing stock. Net closing stock means you can understand that from two possibilities. Possibility one is your opening stock will be completely zero and closing stock will be some 100 units, and thereby there is a net closing stock of 100. Possibility number two is both opening stock and closing stock are present in some numbers, but closing stock in number is greater than opening stock in number. Thereby you have a net closing stock. In both these cases, your production will be greater than sales. In other words, sales is less than production. Okay. The third scenario is exactly opposite, where your sales is greater than production. Means you can sell more than what you have produced. When is that possible? When there is opening stock from the previous year. So therefore, there is net opening stock. Again, there are two possibilities. Either your closing stock is completely zero, therefore you have opening stock, and therefore there is a net opening stock of 100 in this example. Or both opening stock and closing stock are present, but opening stock in number is greater than closing stock in number. Thereby there is net opening stock. In both these cases, ultimately your sales will be greater than production. Done? So now we have understood these three scenarios. Now let's try to understand the logic behind this particular sentence. How is this possible? Profit under marginal costing is not equals to profit under absorption costing if there is stock. Right. So we'll start with scenario 2, which means where there is net closing stock. So why profits are different is the first question. Because of presence of stocks, obviously profits are different. Because if there is no stock, both the profits are same. That we have seen already. Why presence of stock is affecting your profit? Why? Because they are valued differently as per absorption costing and marginal costing. So when they are valued differently, you know that stocks will influence the profit. So when the valuation is different, automatically they will either increase or decrease the profit in a different way. Therefore, the profits vary, right? So valuing them differently is the main reason. Obviously, next you will have two continuous questions. Why stocks are valued differently and how stocks are valued differently. So let's try to answer the first one, how stocks are valued differently. Then we'll answer why stocks are valued differently. Now, if you look at how stocks are valued differently, first of all, try to imagine where stocks are physically present. They are present inside the factory or the godown. When they are present inside the factory, they will be naturally made up of factory cost. We know what is factory cost. Already I taught you the concept over here. So factory cost means direct material, direct labor and factory overheads. So come back over here, which means you'll be having direct material, direct labor, and factory overheads. In factory overheads, you'll have variable and fixed. Same logic applies here as well. Now, what is the difference basically? When it comes to marginal costing, you will not have this fixed factory overheads. Are you able to understand? This will not be there. Which means as per marginal costing, it is made up of 3 elements: direct material, direct labor, and variable factory overheads. As per absorption costing, it is made up of 4 elements. Therefore, stock under absorption costing, the stock valuation will be greater than stock valuation as per marginal costing. As you can see, here it is 140 and here it is 110, right? Now, in scenario 2, basically what happens? You have net closing stock. So, you know the tendency of closing stock is to increase your profit. So, which means more the closing stock, more will be the profit. Less the closing stock, less will be the profit. So, as per marginal costing, your closing stock value is 110 over here, which means your profit would have got increased by 110. Whereas as per absorption costing, your closing stock valuation is 140, which we have seen already here, which means your profit would have got increased by 140. Therefore, the conclusion is absorption costing profit is greater than marginal costing profit by 30. Are you able to understand? Right? And that 30 is because of this culprit, fixed factory overheads. Now let's go to scenario 3. Scenario 3, the only difference is in scenario 2, you will have closing stock. In scenario 3, you'll have opening stock. So there is net opening stock, which means tendency of opening stock is to reduce your profit. More opening stock, less profit, and less opening stock, more profit. Therefore, as per marginal costing, if there is opening stock value of 110, it means the profit will be reduced by 110 as per marginal costing. Whereas as per absorption costing, because the stock value is 140, the profit will be reduced by 140. Here 140 has got reduced, here 110 only has got reduced, which means marginal costing profit will be greater than absorption costing profit by that 30 rupees. Okay, so we have answered this part of the question. What is that? How stocks are valued differently. Now the next part of the question is why stocks are valued differently. Well, the reason is because fixed factory overheads are treated as period cost. Period cost means expired cost as per marginal costing system. So expired means that's why they get expired by getting debited in costing P&L account. Whereas the same fixed factory overheads are treated as product cost as per absorption costing system. So product cost means unexpired. They stay inside the product. So that's why here this is the product. Your fixed factory overheads is inside the product because it is treated as product cost. Whereas in marginal costing, it is not inside the product. Why? Because it is treated as period cost and it goes and gets debited in costing P&L account. Got the point? Anyways. So that is what we try to explain over here. Now, so here I just gave explanation. When you debit something in costing P&L account, it is said to be expired. You got the point? Right. Now, next question is, okay, fine. So why fixed factory overheads is treated as product cost as per absorption costing system, and why the same fixed factory overheads is treated as period cost as per marginal costing system? So you said that fixed factory overheads is treated as product cost as per absorption costing system. Therefore, it goes into the product valuation. This is the product closing stock. It goes into the product valuation. Whereas as per marginal costing, it does not go into the product valuation. Instead, it gets expired in the form of period cost by getting debited in costing P&L account. What is the logic behind that? So that is what we have asked here. Why fixed factory overheads is treated as product cost as per absorption costing system? Why the same fixed factory overheads is treated as period cost as per marginal costing system? Well, absorption costing, the purpose is external reporting. Marginal costing, the purpose is decision making. So when you want to take decisions, fixed cost is not relevant. So which means you need to consider it or ignore it. You got to ignore it. You ignore it by treating it as period cost. That is the logic behind why fixed factory overheads is treated as period cost as per marginal costing system. So when you ignore it, you have to ignore it when you're trying to take decision. So obviously when you treat it as a period cost, it goes and gets debited in costing P&L account and it gets ignored, and that's what I want because it is irrelevant for me to take a decision. Whereas when it comes to absorption costing, you are not taking any decision. So therefore no cost is irrelevant, which means all costs are relevant, and therefore all the costs are reported and nothing is ignored. Simple logic. You got this? Chalo. Right. Now let's move on to the next one. The next one is concept of absorption. Now coming on to concept of absorption, this is also very important, Anna, so listen carefully. First of all, we need to understand the logic behind why there is a requirement of something called concept of absorption. So unlike your financial accounts, which is prepared at the end of the year, costing is a continuous process which starts from day one itself. Okay. So from day one, you need to know you need to manufacture your goods and you need to fix your selling price to sell your goods, which means you need selling price per unit from day one. Normally, presuming that you are a price setter, How will you fix your selling price? Your total cost per unit plus profit markup based on your overall cost of capital. That varies from company to company. But ultimately, you need to know total cost per unit to fix your selling price if you are a price setter. But how to find total cost per unit? Total cost will have two elements, direct cost or per unit or prime cost per unit, indirect cost per unit, in other words, overheads. When it comes to direct cost per unit, to calculate it, there is no problem whatsoever. It is easy to calculate, no complications, no issue. But when it comes to calculating indirect cost per unit, you have two problems. Problem number one is you do not know what is your overhead cost per unit or indirect cost per unit. That is the reason in CA Intel, you read a separate chapter called overheads, where the ultimate utility of overheads chapter is to find overhead cost per unit, where you do those three steps: primary distribution of overheads, secondary distribution of overheads, and absorption of overheads, where after the third step, you eventually ultimately find overhead cost per unit, which is indirect cost per unit. You add it to direct cost per unit, you get total cost per unit, and eventually you fix your selling price. So this is first problem, and that we eventually solve with the help of overheads chapter. We have already learned that in your intern. There is second problem as well. What is that second problem? You do not know what your actual overheads are until you reach the end of the year. You will know it only at the end of the year. So at the beginning of the year, you don't know what's your actual overheads are. But we need to fix our selling price from day one itself. To do that, you need to know total cost per unit from day one itself. But you don't know what's your actual overheads are from the day one itself. You will know it only at the end of the year. You understand the problem? So which means basically you do not know what your actual overheads are at the beginning of the year, obviously. So which means no actual overhead cost per unit, which means no total cost per unit, no selling price per unit, you can't do business. So what is the solution for this particular problem? Go with expected overheads. When you don't know what's your actual overheads are, you go with expected overheads. Something you'll expect, right? That this much will be my expense. Go with that, which is nothing but budgeted overheads. Expected overheads is nothing but budgeted overheads, right? Isn't it? Yes. So calculate budgeted overheads. Okay. Find out budgeted overhead cost per unit, right? Which is nothing but indirect cost per unit, which is not actual, but it is budgeted. You add direct cost per unit to that, which is already ready with us. Total cost you'll get, add profit margin based on your return that you want to earn. You get your selling price per unit. Problem solved. You got this? Chalo. Now the next thing is, okay, this is fine. Now let us see how this whole concept of absorption works. Sorry. We're going to divide overheads into three parts: budgeted overheads, absorbed overheads, which can also be called as standard overheads, and actual overheads. Okay. Before your financial year starts, you will expect your overheads. You will budget your overheads, which comes around, let's say, 1,20,000. How you have budgeted your overheads? Like that, you will budget output as well, which is units. Let's say it is 12,000. In that case, if you divide both of them, you'll get budgeted rate per unit, which is 10 per unit, which can also be called as standard rate per unit or absorption rate per unit or predetermined rate or recovery rate, nothing but the same. Here I have divided this overheads, budgeted overheads, with units. Why? Because I presume that units is the predominant influencing factor in that particular production department. Other than units, there can be 5 other predominant influencing factors. So it purely depends upon the question. But most frequently, it will be either of these 3. Either machine hours will be the predominant influencing factor, or labor hours, or units. Suppose it's a capital intensive department, machine hours will be the predominant influencing factor because it is full of machines. Labor intensive department, labor hours. Here it is units. So like that, it depends upon that particular production department. Depending upon that, you need to choose one of these 3 and divide them. You will get your absorption rate, to put it very simple. All this will happen before your financial year starts. So once your financial year starts, on April 1st, let's say you have manufactured 40 units. Already you have your absorption rate, which is 10 rupees. So you absorb 10 rupees per unit. So you have absorbed 400 on day 1. Same logic applies to day 2, day 3, so long it goes for 365 days. After 365 days, let's say you have actually manufactured 13,000 units. This is your actual output. Actually, you have manufactured 13,000 units and you have absorbed 10 rupees per unit, which means you have absorbed 1,30,000. Absorbed means what? What you have debited in costing P&L account. Once 365 days is done, you have come to year end. So obviously, when you have come to year end, you know what's your actual overheads are. Let's say it is 1,40,000. Whereas how much you have debited in costing P&L account or absorbed? 1,30,000, which means you have debited less. So under absorption, which is 10,000, which is the difference between absorbed overheads and actual overheads. Clear? So this is nothing but concept of absorption. You got the point? Chalo. Finished, Nana. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is activity based CVP analysis. You might say, sir, already we have seen this, right? Yeah, we have seen, but now I took activity based costing concept also here itself, and then we're gonna finish the concept of ABC also, because both are connected. Normally activity based costing concept should be taught as part and parcel of SAOI, that is strategic analysis of operating income, but now we're gonna see it here itself as part and parcel of decision making chapter itself. You got the point? That's why I've put this heading one more time. You'll understand. Okay, what we have seen already, what we are going to see now is quite a bit different. We're going to see so many different perspectives. Right, now see here. Activity based CVP analysis. We know that break-even point formula is fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. How did you decide that this much is the fixed cost? Based on variability with output. You classify your fixed cost into variable cost and fixed cost, right? This classification of fixed cost is wrong. Why? Because we have seen this concept already. Anyway, one more time I'm saying, just because a particular cost does not vary with the output doesn't make it a fixed cost. In reality, what happens is there are so many fixed costs which vary with something else other than output. For example, there is a setup fixed cost which varies with number of setups, but it doesn't vary with number of units. Engineering cost which varies with number of engineering hours, but it doesn't vary with number of units. Material requisition fixed cost which varies with number of material requisitions but does not vary with number of units. Similarly, inspection fixed cost which varies with number of inspections but does not vary with units. Are you able to understand? So these are officially called as non-unit based fixed costs, because these fixed costs, they vary with something other than units. That's why it is called non-unit, because they vary with something other than units. All these are other than units only, na? And these fixed costs vary to something other than units. Therefore, we call it as non-unit based fixed cost. And we have seen this formula as well. So this is nothing new. Already we have seen it over here, correct? We have seen this concept. Where is it? Here. Already we have seen it. So we have brushed it up one more time. Okay, till here it's clear. We know it. Now we're going to look into the concept of activity based costing. Very, 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 very important concept. That's why I gave so many stars over here. And as I told you, it actually comes under SAOI chapter, strategic analysis of operating income, but we're going to finish it off here itself. Now, before we get to this particular concept, activity based costing, the first thing that you guys need to understand is that what is the purpose of activity based costing concept? The purpose is to find overhead cost per unit. Now you might be surprised because already we know how to calculate overhead cost per unit. How do we know that? We have learned that in our CA Inter, right? Or CMA Inter. There's a chapter called overheads where we do 3 steps. That is primary distribution of overheads, secondary distribution of overheads, and absorption of overheads, where ultimately you try to find overhead cost per unit. So when you already know how to find overhead cost per unit, why do you need a separate concept again to calculate the same? Well, to know that, you need to wait. Okay. But right now, you should know one thing, that the purpose of activity-based costing is to calculate overhead cost per unit. Done. Okay. To understand the logic behind this, because already we know how to calculate overhead cost per unit, then why are we trying to learn another concept where again the purpose is to calculate the same overhead cost per unit, which we already know how to calculate? Let's try to understand that logic. For that, first you should know the modern business environment. From 1960s to 1990s, it was a seller's market. Seller was the dominating guy. So there are no multinational companies. Say for example, the cost structure was in most of the companies, manufacturing companies I mean, if total cost is 100 rupees per unit, direct cost will normally be greater than or equals to 90%, and indirect cost will be normally less than or equals to 10%, which is overheads. So therefore, overheads are not that important at that particular point of time, at this time. Okay. So even ad hoc absorption of overheads was sufficient. Ad hoc means blind way of absorbing overheads was sufficient. This is what you are doing in your IPCC overhead chapter when you are trying to calculate overhead cost per unit. You are going with ad hoc method of absorption. It is not perfect method of absorbing overheads. But whatever the way it is, ultimately you will calculate total cost per unit and you fix your selling price based on the presumption that you are a price setter, which I told you already. But after 1990, this was fine at that particular point of time when overheads was less than 10%. Even that ad hoc method was running fine. Otherwise, why would companies be follow? And they have been successful as well. So it worked at that particular point of time. It worked, but not after 1990, because after 1990, it has been what do you call bias market? So which means selling price is fixed by market forces, and seller has become a price taker, which means he has to accept the price that has been fixed by the market, because he doesn't decide selling price per unit unless his total cost per unit of the product is precise. he will end up taking wrong decision which will adversely affect the business. What do you mean by that? Suppose if your total cost is not exact, it is approximate, it is not precise. 40 rupees per unit, you are saying the total cost of a particular product and it is not correct, it is wrong. In that case, either it will be over costed or it will be under costed. So if it is under costed, it means that the product gives more profit. So you may decide to increase your production, which is wrong. Why? Because you feel that it gives you more profit because of your wrong calculation of total cost. Same logic applies to over costed situation as well. You feel that the product is giving you less profit and you may decide to stop production. So both the decision will damage the company and its business. You got the point, isn't it? Right. So, and in the other case, the other reason is that earlier you are a price setter. Therefore, you were setting your selling price and this was working. But now, because it's a buyer's market domination, this is happening, which we have already explained you. Apart from that, suppose if total cost is 100 per unit, now indirect cost is almost like 40%. Earlier, when we have studied this, it was only less than 10%, right? When you are following that blind method of absorbing overheads or ad hoc absorption method. But that was working fine at that particular point of time. Why? Because overheads are not significant. It was less than 10%. But now you cannot follow the same blind method of absorbing overheads when your overheads is as high as 40% due to MNCs and due to change in the way you're doing business once the buyer's market situation have come into picture. That is one thing. Second thing is, now you're a price taker, which we have already seen. So you don't have control over your selling price. Are you able to understand? So, therefore, the only way to solve all these problems, what problems? To solve the problem of undercosting or overcosting your product, to solve the problem of managing a significant overhead cost, which is almost like 40%, the only solution for you is ABC, which is activity-based costing. How? Because activity-based costing helps you to find exact overhead cost per unit. That's what we have told here. So you were wondering that already we know how to calculate overhead cost per unit. Then why do we need another concept again to calculate overhead cost per unit? Means the difference is, once upon a time, whatever the overhead cost that you were calculating in your intermediate based on overhead chapter was not precise. Because you were observing your overheads based on ad hoc absorption methodology. But ABC helps you to find out the same overhead cost per unit only. But the difference is it will help you to find out exact overhead cost per unit. Precise overhead cost per unit. Therefore, once you know exact overhead cost per unit, then your total cost per unit also will be precise, which means your selling price will be perfect. There will be no question of undercosting or overcosting, right? You will do your business in a perfect way. Now, let's try to understand what is ABC. Try to recollect your IPCC or CMA Inter overheads chapter or CA Inter, whatever it is. Overhead cost per unit, how do you calculate if it is units method? Total overhead cost divided by total number of units, correct? If it is Mishna's method, because I told you now, depending upon predominant influencing factor, this can keep on changing. Concept of absorption, I told you just now. Depending upon the different types of methods, okay, it keeps on changing. So, overhead cost per unit is total overhead cost divided by number of units, or overhead cost per Mishna is total overhead cost divided by total Mishnas. Let's say your total overhead cost is 1,20,000. Let's say your Mishnas is 10,000. So what you were doing in CA Inter is what we are trying to see here. So Mishna rate will be 12 rupees per Mishna, correct? Let's say there are three products A, B and C. Mishnas, A takes 2 hours, B takes 3 hours, C takes 1 hour. Per hour the rate is 12. So obviously into 12 into 12 into 12, your overhead cost per unit is 24, 36 and 12. You will readily have direct cost per unit. You add that, you get your total cost per unit. This is what you were doing. Correct? And as per ABC, what you were doing is wrong. You can ask me, how is it wrong, sir? We'll try to understand the same. Now see here. This Mishna rate, what you have calculated here, 12 rupees per Mishna, ABC activity based costing says that it is wrong. What is that? Dividing total overhead cost divided by total Mishnas, which is 1,20,000 divided by 10,000 Mishnas, is wrong. So how can you say it is wrong? What is the logic behind this? The logic is, see, when you are dividing 1,20,000 divided by 10,000 Mishnas, it means that this entire numerator is influenced by denominator. That is the logic. This entire 1,20,000 is influenced by Mishnas. That's why you're dividing the entire overheads with Mishnas is the logic. The entire 1,20,000 overheads is influenced by Mishnas, but this logic is wrong. Why? Because 1,20,000 overheads is not a single expense. It's a pool of so many expenses. If you do further analysis of this 1,20,000, you get that machining cost is 40,000 out of this 1,20,000. Setup cost is 30. Inspection cost is 20 out of this 1,20,000. Material requisition cost is 30 out of this 1,20,000. And only this machining cost of 40,000 is influenced by Mishnas. Which means out of this 1,20,000, only 40,000 portion is influenced by Mishnas, which means entire 1,20,000 should not be divided by 10,000 Mishnas. Only 40,000 should be divided by 10,000 Mishnas. That is the logic. Remaining cost of overheads are influenced by different factors. Then they should be divided by those respective factors, not Mishnas. Because these are not getting influenced by Mishnas. Only this 40,000 portion is influenced by Mishnas. Therefore, divide it with Mishnas. These three are not influenced by Mishnas. They are influenced by different factors. So, divide them with respective factors. Thereby, you'll get multiple overhead absorption rates or multiple rates of recovery. That is nothing but we call it as activity-based cost. You got the point? So, that is the logic and the concept of activity-based costing. You got this? Got this, guys? Right, chalo. Let's move on to the next one. Concept of sell or further process. See, the confusion is very simple. Should you sell now at whatever the selling price that is available right now, or you should further process that particular product and sell? Well, the answer is very simple. Take sale value after further processing. Let's say it is 1,500. After further processing, let's say your sale value is 1,500. Right now, your sale value is 1,000, which means if you further process, you'll be getting additional sales of 500. What is the cost for further processing? Let's say it is 400. Then there is a net benefit of 100. In that case, you can further process. So if it's positive, you can further process. Suppose your sale value after further processing is 1,500. Right now, the sale value is 1,000. So additional sales is 500. Whereas the additional cost is 600. In that case, this will be 100 negative. Then do not further process. Very simple. Very, very simple. You got this? I hope this is clear. All of you? Right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Still, there are so many concepts like concept of limiting factor and so many other indifference point concept and all those things that we'll see as part and parcel of transfer pricing chapter. Okay, I'll cover it in transfer pricing chapter. So right now, I'm not going to cover those concepts. Is that clear? So don't get worried. That I'll be covering in transfer pricing chapter. Now let's move on to the last concept of this particular chapter, decision making. That is relevant costing. So based on elements, basically we can classify cost into three categories: material, labor, and overheads. So let's try to start with the first cost, that is material cost. And what is our object right now? Our objective is to find what is the relevant cost of material. Our objective is to find what is the relevant cost of material. How to find relevant cost of material? Ask yourself the first question. Is raw material is in stock or out of stock? If it is in stock, then it is different. If it is out of stock, straight away the relevant cost is replacement cost, which is nothing but buying price. The logic is very simple. When there is no raw material in stock, how will you get the raw material? You'll go, you'll buy, and you'll get it. So what is the cost of using it? Whatever the price with which you have bought it. It's as simple as that. So when it is out of stock, you're gonna buy it and bring it over. Therefore, that buying price is nothing but replacement cost. So relevant cost is replacement cost. Very simple. Suppose if the raw material is in stock, then what is the relevant cost of that particular raw material if you use it? For that, you need to answer one more question. Is it regularly used? You have two answers. Yes, it is regularly used. No, it is not regularly used. If it is regularly used, then again the relevant cost of using it is replacement cost. Why, sir? Why? Because let's say the raw material comes like this. Immediately it will be going for consumption. Comes, goes for consumption. Comes, goes for consumption. Comes, goes for consumption. In that kind of situation, if you use in between some units of raw material, then it will create stock out situation. So immediately you need to, solve that stock out situation. How will you solve it? By buying and then putting it over. So when you're trying to use any stock in the middle for temporary requirement or whatever it is, are you able to understand? So what is the cost of using it? Replacement cost only, because you're immediately replacing it with the newly bought raw materials, correct? Therefore, if your raw material is regularly used and it is there in stock, but it is regularly used, it's a busy raw material, and you're using such raw material, then the relevant cost of using it is replacement cost. Why? Because when you use such raw material, immediately it has to be replaced. So you will buy and you will replace. So what is the cost of using it? I've bought and I've replaced. Nah, so the bought price, which is nothing but, the buying price, which is nothing but replacement cost. So if it is not regularly used, then you see whether it has got any resale value. Let's say it can be sold for a value of 100. Then 100 will be the cost of using it. Why? Because you're using it, you're losing an opportunity to sell it for a price of 100. Therefore, 100 rupees of benefit is lost. Benefit lost is nothing but opportunity cost. Therefore, relevant cost will be 100. So you need to think like that. There is a raw material stock like this. It can be sold for 100. That stock I'm using for some purpose. In that case, I lose an opportunity to sell it for 100. Therefore, 100 rupees is gone. Therefore, what is the cost of using this raw material? That 100 rupees which I have lost, which is nothing but opportunity cost. Therefore, relevant cost will be resale value. Suppose this so-called irregularly used raw material, which is there in stock, can be used as substitute in the place of some other raw material. Let's say this irregularly used raw material is X. It can be used as a substitute in the place of Y. Y right now is not there in our stock. We need to buy Y by paying a price of 150 per unit. But we came to know that instead of buying Y by paying a price of 150, we can use X as a substitute for Y, which is already there in stock. X is already there in stock. Therefore, what is the relevant cost of using X? 150. Why? Because of X only, na? You have saved 150. Well, the logic is very simple. Therefore, price of the substitute will be your answer. Very simple. You got the point? Yes. So, price of the substitute will be your relevant cost. Yeah. So, when both the options are available, whichever is higher will be your answer. So, if both the options are available, relevant cost will be whichever is higher. 100 or 150, 150 will be your relevant cost. Pretty simple. Can be sold for something, can be used as substitute. Whichever is higher will be your answer. Now, coming on to next one, that is labor. You need to find the relevant cost of your labor. That is your objective. What type of labor it is your first question. Is it skilled labor, unskilled labor? If it is unskilled labor, he is very easy to find. So you will not take them as permanent employees, because whenever you need them, you can easily find them because they are not skilled. In that case, the relevant cost will be actual wages paid, which is whatever you pay. So whenever I need them, I'll recruit them, I'll use them, I'll pay them, I'll ask them to get lost. So what is the cost of using them? Whatever that you have actually paid, which is nothing but actual wages paid. But when it comes to skilled labor, that is not the case. Because they are difficult to find, they will generally be taken as a permanent employee. So to find out the relevant cost of skilled labor, you need to find out whether he is busy or idle. If he is idle, then the relevant cost of using a skilled labor is 0. Why it is 0? Why? Because he will be permanent employee, which means your wages are committed already, whether he works or he doesn't work, whether he is busy or he is not busy. Anyway, you have to pay them. So you're already paying him and he's idle. So what is the incremental cost of using him now? Nothing, because you're already paying him. Whether I use him or I don't use him, in both the cases you have to pay. So therefore, what is the relevant cost of using him? 0. Because the incremental cost of paying him is 0, because you're already paying him. You got it? Even though he's idle, still you are paying him. If he's busy, then what's going to happen? Very simple. If he's busy and you want him, say for example, for project XY. Okay. You will get him over here and see that the project in which he is already busy, is there a substitute available? If a substitute is available, whatever you pay to the substitute will be the relevant cost of using this particular skilled labor, because the value of skilled labor is what you are paying to the substitute, because the substitute is doing the same job that your skilled labor is doing. Correct? The logic is very simple. So if he is busy, you try to bring him to another project. Here it is project A. You're asking him for project XY. You bring him over here. Then here somebody has to replace his work. Let's say there is a substitute worker available and you're replacing him and you're paying him some 10,000. Then 10,000 is the worth of this so-called skilled labor. Isn't it? Because somebody is doing the same work that the skilled labor is doing at some X price. Then X price will be the value of the skilled labor, as simple as that. So therefore, relevant cost is nothing but wages you paid to the substitute worker. Suppose if substitute is not available for project A and you're asking skilled labor to come to project XY, then if substitute is not available, then you have to stop this particular project and work for project XY. Then whatever the profit that you're losing because of stopping this particular project A is a benefit loss. Benefit loss is nothing but opportunity cost. That opportunity cost will be the relevant cost. Got it? And finally, overheads. Material is done, labor is done, and the last one is overheads. Two types of overheads: variable, fixed. Variable overheads will always be relevant. Why? Because they're variable. They change. When they change, they are relevant. Isn't it? In fixed overheads, if it is general fixed overheads, it is irrelevant, which doesn't change, which remains constant. Okay, absorbed fixed overheads, general fixed overheads, share of fixed overheads, all these things are constant. Allocated fixed overheads, all these are irrelevant. But if it is specific, then it is relevant. Specific, incremental, additional, discretionary fixed overheads, all these are relevant. Why? Because they are changing. You are incurring them right now. They are increasing. So fixed cost also, if it changes, then it is relevant. If it remains constant, then it is irrelevant. Simple logic. You got it? That's it. So we're done with all the concepts. As I told you, the limiting factor, indifference point, all those concepts are there. That we will cover in transfer pricing, okay, chapter, when we are revising that particular chapter. Is that clear? That's it, guys. With this, we are done with all the concepts. I've covered activity-based costing also over here. I hope you guys are really getting benefited from these rapid revision videos. I'm trying to cover all the concepts as much as possible in the limited time. Are you able to understand? We'll try to do the same for all the important chapters for this particular attempt. So stay tuned to our channel, subscribe our classes so that you'll get the notification the moment I upload without wasting your time. Okay, and also you share this video, so let your friends know so that they'll also get benefited. So that's the reason, as you can see, I'm working late night whenever I find time, midnight or late night, and then I'm trying to record this session for you guys. Thank you so much. I hope this video helps you write your exams better. That's it, guys, from my side. Bye bye.